In this video, we're going to talk about what happens during a family law appeal in Indiana, what's the steps to the process, and how the process works. About me, my name's Nathan Vining. I am a family law attorney. I do appellate work in Indiana. I would be happy to walk you through the process and actually look at your case to see what can be done in your situation. Appeals in family law court look to correcting something that's wrong with the judge's decision. A lot of times it involves some kind of legal error. So for instance, if a relocation case, the judge applied the relocation statute wrong. Something I saw recently is that there's actually a procedural error in the case and the judge didn't allow the wife to present evidence in a certain way that the husband was allowed to, which creates an error that we're going to look into reversing on appeal. Another example could be if they restricted parenting time without the proper findings, they would have to show that the parenting time would endanger the child's physical or emotional health, and they didn't make those specific findings. So it's about looking at those technical errors in the court's ruling to see if there's anything that could be overturned by an appellate court. So it's ultimately the process where you have the appellate court review the trial court's ruling to see if there's any major errors within the decisions. So who's involved? There's the appellant, that's the person that's pursuing an appeal. The appellee is the person that's the opposing party who's responding to the appeal. And then it goes to the higher court in Indiana. A family law appeal would go to the Indiana Court of Appeals. It's important to note that there's strict timelines. You would need to file the notice of appeal within 30 days of the court's ruling. Or if there's a motion to correct error filed, there's also additional rules for the timing on when to file it if there's been a motion to correct error filed. But ultimately, the key thing is to know that you have 30 days from the date of the court order to file that notice of appeal. And it's important to perfect it because if you don't file within that timeline, you can lose your right to appeal. After the appeal's been filed, the trial court record is submitted. Essentially, there's certain parts of the court file that's transmitted to the Court of Appeals, so then they can review court filings as well as transcripts and information from the hearing. So the court reporter would write the transcript, and then once the transcript and court record's compiled, you would then, once that transcript's submitted, the appellant would write their appellant's brief, and that's the third step. The appellant creates a brief outlining why they believe the trial court got it wrong. It's very detailed. There's actually a very specific process you have to follow when writing an appellant's brief. So there's a lot of formatting guidelines in terms of what sections need to be in there, how long it can be, and even what it's going to have to look like. After you write your brief, the appellee can write a response. They would then respond to what your legal arguments are, and typically argue why they think the judge got it right. And then the judges may have you do oral arguments where you argue your case in front of the court, and they have the opportunity to ask you questions. After that, they then would issue a ruling, and they would either affirm the trial court's decision, reverse it, and sometimes they remand it for further proceedings where they say, we're going to send it back and you need to get evidence around these points and then make a decision. How does it play out in a custody appeal? You could believe that the court looked at the information wrong. They didn't apply the best interest standard correctly. You could appeal it. And then the appellate court looks to see, does that evidence tie into what the law actually was? And they could make a ruling from there. You need to know it's a very complex process. It's hard from a legal technical standpoint. There's a lot of legal arguments that you have to make. You have to understand case law. You have to understand how precedent works. And then you also have to understand that it's time consuming and also very technical in terms of how the briefs have to be written. And then the timelines. If you miss a timeline, it could be critical to your case, and you could actually lose your ability to appeal or have the appeal dismissed if you miss deadlines. So if you have questions about a family law appeal, give me a call, text me. Here's my number. I'd be happy to review your case.